We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed of Beis and Meseches Yoma. This is Yoma Daf 30b. On the previous summit, we had a machlokas tanoim when it comes to immersing right before you enter the Azara, right before you begin the avoda of the day. Is that a din d'oraisa or is it a din d'rabbanan? So the Gemara asks, what exactly is the machlokas? And the Gemara says, Ba'chule avoda kamiflagi. They're really arguing over whether if you don't do that immersion in the morning and you serve in the Beis HaMikdash, is the avoda going to be puzzle? LeBen Zoma machal avoda. According to Ben Zoma, the entire avoda is going to be puzzle, like Rashi says. LeBen Zoma diomar do raisi. According to Ben Zoma, who says it's a din do raisa, learned from a kal v'chomer from the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. Sharinit and kal v'chomer li dorish have avodasa mechulelas. According to Ben Zoma, because you're making a kal v'chomer again, it's a din do raisa, so therefore the whole avoda is going to be no good. That's according to Ben Zoma. Rabbi Yehuda lo machal avoda, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, the avoda is going to be fine. Diamar d'Rabbanan he lo machal. According to Rabbi Yehuda, again, the whole reason was just a din d'Rabbanan to remind the person so he should remember in case he was tamei. But it's not a din d'oraisa. So therefore, if the person doesn't do the immersion, the avoda is still going to be good. But the Gemara says this is not true. Leven Zoma mi machal. Is it really true that according to Ben Zoma that it's d'oraisa, that the whole avoda is thrown out if you don't do it? As Rashi over here explains, well, Ben Zoma's entire source is from the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. But even when it comes to the Kohen Gadol, who's the source, if he neglects to immerse between the different begadim, shu meshanaba, which he switches between them, avodas kshera, as we're going to see in this brisa, the avodah is still kosher. So if the Kohen Gadol's avodah is kosher when he doesn't immerse, and that's the whole source for having to immerse at the beginning of an avodah when you come into the azar in the first place, so obviously it's not possible for a regular Kohen either. V'atanya, as we learned in a brisa, Kohen Gadol shelo tava v'lo kiddush bein beged lebeged. If you have a Kohen Gadol who doesn't immerse and doesn't sanctify his hands and his feet between the various changes of begadim, ubein avodah la'avodah, between the different avodos, avodah so kashera, his avodah is kosher, and that's the proof. If the Kohen Gadol, the avodah is kosher, so by Kohen Hedyot also, if he neglects to do that first immersion of the day, if he's tahor, it's still going to be a kosher avodah. Echad Kohen Gadol v'echad Kohen Hedyot shelo kiddush yada v'raglav shachris. Now, if you have a Kohen Gadol or a Kohen Hedyot who don't wash their hands and feet, they don't sanctify their hands and feet in the morning, v'yavar avoda, and then he doesn't avoda, whether Kohen Gadol or Kohen Hedyot, avoda so psula. In that situation, then the avoda will indeed be puzzle. Rashi over here says, Echad Kohen Gadol avoda so psula, beperek sheni dezvachim yalfinan decheshalo rochotz yadayim v'raglayim mechal avoda. That's not a question over there. Later on, we're going to see that if you don't wash the hands and the feet, then the avoda actually is not good. But again, we're talking here about immersion, not about washing the hands and the feet. So in any case, it seems that everybody would agree, even Ben Zoma should agree, that if the Kohen does not do the immersion at the beginning of the day, it's not going to possibly avoda. So what is the practical nafkamina between Ben Zoma and Rabbi Yehuda? The machlokas between them is the person over in an asay? LeBen Zoma koi ba'asay. According to Ben Zoma, you violated a doraisa, you violated a mitzvah asay. But Rabbi Yehuda lo koi ba'asay. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there's no mitzvah asay here. It's just a derabbanan, and that's the whole nafkamina. Rashi over here says, LeBen Zoma koyo le ba'asay mikal v'chomer to Kohen Gadol show over ba'asay. Since the Kohen Gadol has an asay, and we're learning it from a kal v'chomer from a Kohen Gadol, this will also be an isser asay. Like it says, V'rachat says besoro b'mayim u'levesham. That's a pasuk by Kohen Gadol. Says he has to immerse. So that's going to be the nafkamina. Is there an asay or is there not an asay? The Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda hay svar. But 1 second, does Rabbi Yehuda really hold of this? Rashi says, are you really saying that according to Rabbi Yehuda agrees with our Mishnah? That anyone who enters the Azar needs to immerse. In other words, the entire assumption of the Gemara is Rabbi Yehuda agrees that anyone who enters the Azar, like our Mishnah says, needs to immerse. The only thing is, Rabbi Yehuda says it's d'Rabbanan, but is that really true? But the Gemara says, V'atanya, but we learned in a brisa not like that. Mitzora tovel v'yomed, the brisa says that a Mitzora immerses, and he stands b'shar Nikanor, at the gate of Nikanor, and Rabbi Yehuda says, Eino tzarech tefillah, he does not need to immerse. Shekvar tovel mi ba'erev, because he already immersed the evening before. But in any case, you see from this brisa, Rabbi Yehuda does not require immersion when he's entering over here. Rashi over here says, Mitzora b'shmini shalom, Mitzora on his 8th day. Now, even though Mitzora, when he's in the purification process, he immerses on the seventh day, like it says in the pasuk. When he comes and brings his karbanos to the Beis Hamikdash, he has to immerse again. He stands in Shar Nikanor, he sticks his hands and his feet inside, because they have to do a matan damim and they have to place some oil on the hands and the feet. But in any case, what's the point? The point over here is, Rabbi Yehuda says, Eino tzarech tvila. Apparently you don't need immersion when you're entering. So the Gemara says, no, Kidatani Tayama over there, that's like it already says in the Bryce, it says the reason. Shekvar Tavil mi be'erev, because it says he already immersed the evening before, meaning normally you do need to immerse. In the case of a Mitzorah who just immersed on the seventh day, there's no reason to do it all over again. Rashi over here says, Kidatani Tayama Shekvar Tavil mi be'erev. Rabbi Yehuda l'Taimi, Rabbi Yehuda follows his reasoning. Diamar ein tvila shacharis haboim la'azora elo lizkor tumah yeshana. The whole reason you need to immerse in the morning when you come to the Azara is just to remember maybe you have some tumah you forgot about. V'zein tzarech lekach, but this guy who's a mitzorah, he doesn't need to do that. Sharei tava lemesh l'chol tumah shalav. He just did a tvila. He just did immersion yesterday from any tumah that he had anyway, so that's not a concern. In other words, according to Rabbi Yehuda, who the whole reason is just to remind the person in case there's some tumah, that's not an issue over here. That's why Rabbi Yehuda in this particular case says you don't need tvila, but in general, Rabbi Yehuda would say you need tvila, like our Mishnah. And so the Gemara asks, well, what was the question in the first place? In other words, it's so obvious what the answer is. It says explicitly in the Bryce, so the reason why the Mitzorah does not need to immerse is because he immersed the evening before. It shouldn't have even been a question. As Rashi says, Misha Osik v'Mishnah Zu, lahashim mimenu v'beis hamerish, laman isasek, halo tam first. But what are you asking a question from a Bryce where the reason is given explicitly? So the Gemara says, Mishum de Kaboy Lemir Moachrisi. The only reason we brought up this brisa is because we actually have another brisa which seems to contradict, and we want to figure out the answer to that contradiction. Because the other brisa says, Lishkas HaMitzoroin. Why was the chamber called the Lishkas HaMitzoroin? Shesha Mitzoroin Tovlin. The Tanakama says it's because that's where the Mitzorah would immerse. Again, on the 8th day when they were going to the Azara, they would immerse. Rabbi Yehuda says, Lo Mitzoron Bilvad Amru. It's not only the Mitzoron who would immerse, Alakol Adam, everybody would immerse. Now the problem over here is, it seems pretty clear from the way Rabbi Yehuda is phrasing it, that the Mitzoron on the 8th day did immerse. That contradicts Rabbi Yehuda says in the other brisa, Eino Tzarech Tvila, that the Mitzorah doesn't need to. So that's why we wanted to bring up this brisa, because we wanted to show a contradiction in brises. As Rashi says over here, Alakol Adam Hanichnas Lazara. Everybody who enters the Azara has to immerse. Midukamer Bilvad, but the point is, from the fact that Rabbi Yehuda here says the word Bilvad, Mechlalti Islay Tvila b'Mitzorah, sounds like the Mitzorah does need to immerse. So what's going on? So the Gemara answers, Lo Kash, it's not difficult. Had de Tavil, had de Lo Tavil. It depends whether on the evening before he did a Tvila. Rabbi Yehuda was saying, if the Mitzorah does not do a Tvila on the 7th day, the evening before, then he's going to have to do it on the 8th day. Gemara says that's not a good answer. Either lo tavil harav shemesh boy. If he didn't do an immersion the day before, it's not enough just to do the immersion. You have to do the immersion and then wait for the day to end. You have to wait for nightfall. So if he didn't do it on the 7th day and he's going to try to do it now on the 8th day, he's going to have to still wait for nightfall and the next day in order to bring the karbanos. So the Gemara says Eliidi v'idi de tavil. Rather, it has to be obviously the Mitzorah did immerse on the 7th day, the evening before. But in one case, he was paying attention, he was being careful not to be Tameh. In the other case, he wasn't being so careful. If he's not so careful, so maybe he became Tameh accidentally, so then he's going to have to immerse on the 8th day. Gemara says that doesn't make sense either. If he wasn't paying attention, if he wasn't being careful, the guy's going to do a whole 7-day process of purification, because that's tumas meis. The idea of asach daite is that he wasn't watching himself, that he wasn't careful not to enter an oel hameis. Now, if we have a situation where he was not careful and he might have entered an oel hameis, he might have become tamei meis, it's not going to be enough to do an immersion on the 8th day. He's got to do the whole purification process when you're tamei meis, which involves being sprinkled with a mechatas on the 3rd and the 7th day. The Amar Reb Dustoi bar Mosun, Amar Reb Yochanan, because Reb Dustoi bar Mosun said in the name of Reb Yochanan, Hesachadas, if a person's not paying attention, so tzarech hazosh shlishi ushvi, he's going to have to do the sprinkling. On the 3rd and the 7th day, you have to do the whole purification from a mace. So that doesn't answer the contradiction in the brises either. So we still have the question, how come one brise, Rabbi Yehuda seems to say the Mitzorah does have to immerse on the 8th day, and the other one he says he doesn't? So the Gemara says, you're right. In both brises, the person was careful, certainly was careful not to become Tameh. Velokash is not difficult. Hadalo Tavil al Das Bias Mikdash. What all depends on is, when he went to immerse on that 7th day, did he have in mind that he was going to use that tefillah for the 8th day to enter the Mikdash? Or no, he didn't have in mind. If he had in mind, then he doesn't have to immerse again on the 8th day. But if he didn't have that in mind, so then he's going to have a problem. He's going to have to re-immerse on the 8th day in order to enter the Mikdash, in order to have Bias Mikdash. Gemara gives another answer. Viba Yisem, if you want, I could say another answer. Tani, in that second brisa, just change the text a little. Lo mitzoroin amru elakol adam. Take out the word bilvad. What it really was is the mitzoroin don't need to immerse. Other people do need to immerse, meaning because the mitzora already immersed the evening before, so he actually doesn't need to. Only other people need to. If you take out the word bilvad, there's no contradiction. And the Gemara continues with another answer. Ravina says that in the second brisa, Rabbi Yehuda ledivreim d'Rabbanan ka'amar lahu. Rabbi Yehuda is just speaking according to the position of the Rabbanan. Lididi says, according to me, mitzora ain't sarach tvila. Really, a mitzora, like in the first brisa, a mitzora does not need to immerse. Lididchu, but according to you, odu li easy mios, you should at least admit to me, the lo mitzora and bilvadam, or that it's not only mitzora, ela kol adam, rather anybody, all people should need to immerse. Again, because in the second brisa, the mashmos was lishkas ha-mitzorain, that the Rabbanan held only the mitzora need to, and not everybody. And Rabbi Yehuda is saying, according to you, that the mitzora has to immerse. At least admit that everybody has to immerse. So the Gemara now says, V'Rabbanan, the Rabbanan respond to Rabbi Yehuda, mitzora dayish betuma. Mitzora is regular in becoming tameh. He's somebody who's full of tumah, so to speak. Kol adam lo dayish betuma. But other people are more careful. There's no need for them to immerse. Rashi over here says, L'didi mitzora ein sarach tvila shekvar tavel. As we said, Rabbi Yehuda holds he already did the tvila on the 7th day, doesn't need to do it again on the 8th day. Dayish betuma, the Rabbanan in the second brisa say, Osa tumah, he has that tumah of mitzora he's used to. V'hurgo ad achshav liga betuma. Once he's already tameh as a mitzora, he was touching all kinds of tumah. Lefika chu b'chshash tumos. Therefore, we have a suspicion maybe he's tameh. Shema achar tvila naga. We're afraid maybe after he did the immersion on the 7th day, maybe he touched something, maybe he became tameh. So that's why the Rabbanan in the second brisa say that when it comes to a mitzora specifically, he needs to immerse on the 8th day, but not all people need to immerse. So the Gemara now says, Amar le Abaye le Rav Yosef. So Abaye says to Rav Yosef, Neimu Rabbanan depligi oled Rabbi Yehuda keben zoma svira lahu. Let's say the Rabbanan going in the first brisa. Again, we have two brises over here. Now, just to go back, in the first brisa, it's not 100% clear what the Rabbanan hold about other people. The first brisa simply says, Mitzora tovel v'yomid v'shar niknor. A Mitzora does tefillah and shar niknor. So the question is, according to that first brisa, these Rabbanan in the first brisa, what do they hold about regular people? Do regular people have to immerse or not? So that's what Abaye is saying to Rav Yosef. Neimu Rabbanan depligi oled Rabbi Yehuda keben zoma svira lahu. Let us say, or do we say, that the Rabbanan that argue against Rabbi Yehuda in the first brisa, really they hold like Ben Zoma, that on a doraisa level, everyone needs to immerse when they enter the Azara, even if they're tar. They're only talking about a Mitzora because they want to show the strength of Rabbi Yehuda, that Rabbi Yehuda even says a Mitzora does not need to immerse. Odilmor, maybe Shani Mitzora the Dayish Betuma. Maybe even the Rabbanan in the first brisa, it's just by Mitzora that they make him immerse because again he's full of Tumah, and really they agree with the Rabbanan in the other brisa, as Rashi over here explains. Neimu Rabbanan depligi oled Rabbi Yehuda b'masnisa kamaisa. In that first brisa that we brought, the Katani Mitzora tovel v'yomin v'chulu, which talks about the fact that the Mitzora has to be tovel, ke Ben Zoma svirlu. Maybe they hold like Ben Zoma. The Amar do raisi l'chol adam, that really they hold all people need to immerse. Hilkach loshna tavel mi ba'erev. That's why it doesn't make any difference. V'loshna lo tavel doesn't make any difference. The Mitzora also always needs to immerse. V'lav hainu Rabbanan demasnisa depligi oleh b'mishnah demidos, and it would not be the same as the Rabbanan that we quote in the second brisa, which argues that's talking midos, meaning that's talking about lishkas mitzoroin. That's talking about the area of the Beis Hamikdash called the lishkas mitzoroin. O dilma chadatani, or maybe no, the one in midos, the one that talks about what the chamber of the mitzoroin was for, that is the same Rabbanan as the first brisa. V'shani mitzora, the dayish betuma, and it's different by a mitzora because a mitzora is accustomed to tumah, and that's why we're more strict. The Rabbanan are saying this halacha only by mitzora. So that's the question of Abaye to Rav Yosef. Are the Rabbanan saying it only by mitzora, or would they say like Ben Zoma that everybody needs to? Odilma shani mitzora the dayish betuma. Again, are they saying it by all things like Ben Zoma, or they're saying it no, only a mitzora who's dayish betuma needs to immerse? And so Amar le, so he said back to him, meaning Rav Yosef said back to Abaye, shani mitzora the dayish betuma. This is all one Rabbanan. The Rabbanan say only a mitzora who's dayish betuma needs to immerse on that 8th day, but other people, according to these Rabbanan, they do not hold like Ben Zoma. They don't hold that other people need to immerse. Amar le Abai le Rav Yosef. Now Abai says to Rav Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda do Amar Srach Tvila. According to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that this is all a D'Rabbanan, so in this particular case, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video, on Daf Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph.